Barry Dunne, who's the Western GDA. Barry, of course, well known from the Clashmore Kinsale Beg club. And Barry, a few days out from Christmas, but no doubt you're winding down, I suppose, in what turned out to be a pretty hectic 2021 and looking forward to 2022. But as I was saying with John and David in the conversations last week, I suppose it was such an unusual, and I suppose the not knowing what was happening, was that a tough start to 2020 last January, I suppose.
Hi Gavin, yeah, good to chat to you. It was, Gavin, to be honest, there was such an uncertainty there at the start of this year in terms of what was actually going to happen in the short term and in the longer term. So that was quite a challenge, trying to figure out our plan. We'd have to plan, instead of having to plan for probably 3 months or 6 months, we'd probably end up having to plan for much shorter periods of time just because of the way the restrictions were at the time. But so the early initial part of the year was obviously a lot of confusion, a lot of upheaval, and you're trying to figure out what can we do given the way restrictions were at the time. But then obviously, once things kind of started to open up and once we kind of got back into the schools, it was great that a sense of normality kind of came back to things, and once you were actually out and about and coaching, once the kids were actually getting out and about and playing some games and having a bit of fun, that brought a bit of normality back to their lives as well or whatever. So we were delighted to be able to facilitate that, and we worked really closely with the schools to make sure that it was always done in a very safe way, and that it was always done in the most COVID compliant way that we possibly could. But it was definitely a peculiar start to the year, but thankfully as the year went on, it kind of started to revert to normal, really, in terms of what's involved in the job,
Yeah, certainly so, and absolutely. I think it was that time around May, maybe middle of June, when they actually got back out in the field as well, and there was, I suppose, small pods at the start and non-contact training, but just to get them back out there as well, Barry, you could see the enthusiasm amongst the players, and I suppose yourselves, the coaches, and in the job as well, I suppose.
Yeah, definitely. Like, you could see the appetite was there by the time the clubs start to get back out onto the field. Not only were the players chomping at the bit to get out, but the coaches were as well. I mean, obviously it's been really tough on the kids over the last nearly 2 years at this stage or whatever, but I mean, I suppose it has been tough on coaches as well, and new coaches who want to bring on a team and want to kind of develop players and kind of want to get out and about again or whatever. But that kind of release back around the start of the summer was fantastic for the younger players and for the coaches, just to get back to doing what they love and doing what they enjoy. And and it was kind of surprising how quickly kind of things got back to normal in terms of the actual running of games and in terms of the competitions being ran or whatever. It was brilliant to have that, because obviously a lot of the kids obviously hadn't played any Common One Skull competitions, or some of the secondary competitions in post-primary would have obviously suffered as well. So back around May or June, when the games started back and when non-contact training got going again, it was just like this huge kind of sigh of relief from everybody. I think not only the players, the coaches, and ourselves then as games development staff, that things were getting back to normal,
Yeah, 100%. And once, as you touched on there, blitzes were back, the cool camps again, a massive hit during the summer as well. So I'd imagine it was pretty helter-skelter, Barry, once players got back out in the field.
It did. It was kind of funny. It kind of went from 0 to 100 miles an hour there in a very short space of time. But we had kind of planned for that, I suppose. We obviously knew, we would monitor the situation quite closely. We would have been getting updates from Croke Park as to what was permissible and what wasn't. And then based on the update we were receiving from not only from the health authorities but from the GAA, we would then plan, right, well, as soon as things restart, this is what we can run, and these are the programs that we can drive on, and these are the underage competitions that we can run. So you had to be mindful of all that in the background, but it was kind of peculiar how quickly everything kind of got going, and in fairness, credit must go to Borden and Og as well, even running their competitions. Like, they were ready to go as soon as the button was pressed, as the fella says. So it was just all about kind of planning for what was going to happen a few weeks ahead, and then making sure, right, as soon as things are open again, we'll be ready to rock and roll here. We'll be ready to get kids back out onto the field and get them back playing again,
Super stuff, yeah. It was certainly all go, as the fella says. And obviously, Barry, you're covering the western area in terms of the work you do. You might give us an outline of maybe where that area starts and maybe your cut-off point and things like that, and how, I suppose, you're enjoying the role, I suppose.
Yeah, Gavin, I absolutely love it. Like, I'm coming into I think it's my 6th year, or we're coming into my 7th year now in the role. it's the type of role that if you enjoy meeting people, if you enjoy working with people and helping clubs develop and helping coaches develop or whatever, it's a really fantastic job to be involved in. So I cover the west of the county, so essentially from the way to kind of describe it is if you were to draw a triangle from Youghal Bridge to Ballymacarbery right down to probably, the fringes of Kilrossenty there, that's the area that I cover. So there would be 14 GAA clubs, 29 primary schools and then 5 post-primary schools then within that. So I basically work closely with all those different groups or whatever, helping out as best we can with regards to running GAA initiatives, or if any club comes to us with ideas or wants a bit of a help with something, that's our role then, is just to come along and to make sure that we give them as much support and as much help as we possibly can. But it's a very enjoyable role. It's obviously been a challenging role over the last couple of years, but it's been really satisfying, kind of being able to help clubs as well through what is a kind of a confusing time for them too. Around the time that restrictions were brought in first, kind of last year, there was a lot of questions from clubs as to what they could do, what they couldn't do. They'd kind of have, we could be querying kind of stuff as we're kind of going along. So it was great to nearly be able to be like the public face of the GAA and trying to help clubs along through what was quite a difficult time. But it's definitely a very satisfying role. It's one that I really, really enjoy as well,
Yeah, super stuff. And you touched on that period where clubs, I suppose, were probably struggling. But I suppose, did it probably give them a bit of downtime too, Barry, to maybe assess their own situation and see where they were at as well, and maybe see what improvements could be made?
Yeah, definitely, Gavin. Like, I mean, there's no getting away from the fact that some clubs and some people probably utilised the shutdown and utilised the kind of the couple of lockdowns that we had in a very positive way, that they kind of embraced it as, well, you know what, we may not be able to do on-field activity, but now it's time for us to maybe, put together a development plan for our pitches, or to put together a coaching plan, a coaching pathway for our coaches, or a player pathway for our players. So, the vast majority of clubs across, I'd say it's safe to say, across all 3 divisions within the county, as in West, Mid and the urban area, the vast majority of clubs are very proactive. They weren't waiting for us to contact them or anything like that. They were reaching out to us with regards to, okay, what can we do in terms of coach education here? Now is an opportunity for us to do some online upskilling of our coaches, so that when things do reopen, that we'll be in the best position that we possibly can. So I definitely do think there has been kind of although it was a very negative situation to be in, clubs have made the absolute most of it. And we can see that even in terms of, our coach education program, like the numbers that have engaged in our coach ed over the last 18 months or so has been just incredible, really, to be honest. The amount of engagement that we've had across our formal courses, but also across, say, webinars and other things that we would have ran, other initiatives that we would have ran. So although it's been a tough time, obviously, in a personal capacity for a lot of people or whatever, in terms of the club side of things, in terms of the GAA side of things, people have really, really faced things head on and kind of took on different things just to try and drive their own clubs on, which is brilliant to see.
Certainly is, yeah. That enthusiasm, of course, is what it's all about, I suppose, and leads us nicely onto the coach ed, which you touched on there, Barry, which you head up yourself and put a lot of work into it behind the scenes in terms of the online webinars and things you ran during the year. So you might give us an outline of how they went and the engagement, I suppose, you got from clubs.
Yeah, Gavin, look, I'll be honest, they were unbelievable, really. Like, we were kind of conscious that obviously a lot of counties or a lot of clubs or whatever were kind of putting on webinars or whatever. So we kind of said, look, we had to put a bit of a structure on it, whereby we tried to appeal to different strands of coaching. So rather than just having all coaches who work primarily with juvenile players, we tried to have guests on who worked with nursery players, teenagers, adult players, from kind of the S&C side of things even then as well. And also then as well, we just wanted to get on, one of the top coaches in the country or whatever, then say in the likes of Mikey Beavens there, just to talk about what an inter-county setup is like and how they approach their season can be applied to how a manager at adult level or even minor level can approach their season as well. So like some of the guests we had, say like Colin Crowley, Barry Milan, Peter Nash, Owen Mooney, and obviously Mikey himself, Mikey Beavens, like just the insight that you get from those people was fantastic. Obviously, all the sessions were recorded; they're all available to be viewed on our YouTube page, and we had huge numbers watching them live, but also the numbers that we had watching them back after the event. Just phenomenal, really. So it's great that it's been one positive side effect, I suppose, is the fact that we had to think outside the box, I suppose, a small bit in terms of online webinars. It was new to us, I suppose, in a lot of ways, having to get familiar with the software and how to run a webinar successfully. But we got to grips with it. We got fantastic feedback from the coaches on the webinars that we had. We're hoping to run more webinars in the spring. Now, it may not be to the same degree that we would have done last year, because obviously, hopefully, we'll be in place in terms of the clubs being open and being out on the pitches. But we felt it was so successful, we would definitely like to try and engage with that side of things again. So it was definitely a highlight of 2021 from my own point of view, from a coach ed point of view, was just seeing the engagement that we got from coaches across the county, who just wanted to upskill, wanted to learn, and wanted to get a kind of a different view on coaching, for want of a better word.
Super stuff indeed, yeah. And as mentioned there, they are available on the Déise GAA YouTube page, so do indeed check those out. And of course, Barry, I suppose we're just a few days out from Christmas, but I'm sure already the plans are being made for 2022. It won't be too far coming around the corner, and as the lads were touching on last week, hopefully we can get off on a clean slate, and clubs can get straight back into action, even though again at the minute it's probably maybe hard to look too far ahead, I suppose.
Yeah, I suppose we've obviously met a number of times over the last few weeks as a group, the Déise group, to essentially plan for what's going to happen for definitely the year as a whole, but primarily I suppose the first 6 months of the year. So we're really having to come up with nearly two plans. One for things being open and a normal year, and then maybe others where there might be slight restrictions or whatever, so we just have to kind of think slightly differently or whatever. But I suppose from a coach ed point of view, we're ploughing on and very much planning for a really busy first 3 or 4 months of the year. The foundation course that was ran is actually going to be replaced by a new national course that will apply for the GAA, for Camogie and for ladies football. It's called Introduction to Gaelic Games Coaching. So that's due to launch in January, February of 2022, and we've done a lot of work over the last few weeks. All our tutors, we've all gone to upskilling events there to familiarise ourselves with this new course, and we're really excited about rolling that out. Obviously, then again, we would have ran, or every 2 years we run our South East coaching workshops. So we would have ran it in February of 2020. Just before the lockdown on the 12th of March, we ran it actually down in Dublin Arena, and it was a fantastic event. We had 120 coaches plus attending. So we're hoping to run that event again on the Saturday, the 26th of February in Ballygunner GAA Club. So we're planning for that at the moment, obviously, and putting everything in place for that as best we can. And then, look, like I said as well, obviously, a big part of our plans for 2022 is working closely with clubs, asking them, look, what would you like to do in terms of workshops? Rather than us coming along and delivering a set workshop, we want to reach out to clubs and we want them to come to us and say, look, we'd really like to run a goalkeeping workshop for our teenage players, or we want to run a fundamental movements fun nursery session for our younger coaches, just to familiarise themselves with activities to keep that age group active. So we've a lot planned. Really looking forward to the coming year. Obviously, it'll bring challenges, I suppose, same as the last couple of years. But as things have gone on, we've figured out ways of being able to work around and deal with the situation as best we can. So we're just really looking forward to the coming year and making sure that it's another really positive year for coaches and for players across the county.
Nice note to end on. Bring it on indeed. I think we're all looking forward to it. Barry Dunne, Western GDA, many thanks for joining us. Keep up the good work and enjoy the Christmas, and here's looking forward to a busy and enjoyable 2022.
Happy Christmas to you, Gavin, and a very happy Christmas and a happy New Year to all our coaches, players and mentors.